Hello, this is Pedro Rio, and I would like to guide you on this video about the XEO Framework's basic concepts. XEO stands for Extensible Enterprise Objects and is a web development framework for Java programmers. XEO is built around object-oriented concepts, model-driven development, and model view controller. An XEO application works by creating models that represent real-world entities, such as a book or an invoice, and the relations between them. These models are known as XEO models. XEO models are processed by the framework's builder to generate supporting structures such as database tables and Java classes. To make the development of an XEO application easier, we created XEO Studio, an Eclipse plugin. XEO Studio provides a set of wizards, graphical editors, and content editors to help you create your application, which we will see throughout this video. At the most basic level, XEO models are defined by a set of attributes. Attributes represent properties from a real-world entity. You can have several types of attributes, such as text, number, date, or relation attributes, such as object, a one-to-one relation, or a collection, a one-to-n relation, etc. Creating a model with only a set of attributes will give you basic CRUD capabilities, and an API to use that model is available as soon as the builder is finished processing it. At this point in time, you are able to use the API to create new instances of your model, load existing instances, set and retrieve attribute values, as well as saving instances. XEO models are, however, capable of much more than basic CRUD. You can also declare logic associated to the attributes or the model itself. XEO model attributes support a variety of conditions, such as required, valid, default value, formula, disable when, hidden when, etc. You can declare each of these conditions for an attribute and implement them using the power of Java and XEO's API. If you declare a required attribute, you can only save an instance of that model if the attribute has a value. This behavior is also propagated to the web views, but more on that later. Also, you can use the API to check on these conditions, like in the following example. You can get a reference to a model instance, and then retrieve an attribute handler. Then, you can check if the attribute is required, or if the default value matches a certain string. XEO model attributes also provide events in response to certain actions performed upon them, and you can implement your own rules in these events, again using Java and XEO's API. Non-collection attributes respond to the following actions: getValue and change, which means you can implement the following events: on before getValue, on after getValue, on before change, and on after change. Collection attributes respond to the following actions: add, load, change order, remove, change. To each action, an on before action and on after action event is available. On before action events can be used to abort a certain action, for instance, adding an element to a collection in an on before add event. At the model level, you can also declare events in response to actions performed on an instance of that model. Actions like save, load, create, and destroy generate an on before action event and an on after action event where you can implement your logic. For example, you can disable all attributes of an instance if a given condition is verified after the instance is loaded in an on after load event. Not only an XEO model supports events, it also supports a mechanism to implement logic known as methods. A method is an operation that is available to every model instance and can be invoked programmatically. Think a method called processInvoice available to all invoices. Methods also support conditions to when they should be available to the user interface, using a hidden when condition. XEO provides a query language known as XEOQL, which is similar to SQL, that allows you to make selections of instances based on conditions. You can do things like
select invoice.invoice lines where ID equals 123 to select all invoice lines of the invoice with ID 123, assuming invoice lines is a collection attribute of invoice. XEO's API provides methods to execute XEO expressions and returning paged lists of instances to process. The XEO framework is developed in Java and inherits some of its object-oriented concepts. As such, XEO models can be created by extending other XEO models, inheriting their attributes, methods, and events. This allows you to reuse XEO models as you would reuse Java classes. You can also declare an XEO model as an abstract model, so that you cannot create instances, just like in Java. You can also declare XEO interfaces. In XEO, an interface is basically to achieve polymorphism, but you also inherit attributes and events from an interface.
XEO models support two types of built-in permission mechanisms: model permissions, known as policies, and instance permissions, known as OPL. Policies are a runtime mechanism that allow you to assign a certain user, group, or role with permissions to read, create, delete, or update instances of a given model, permission to read or update attributes of a model instance, or permission to execute methods on instances of a model. OPL is a design time mechanism to allow you to define which group or user has permissions over a specific instance of a model. Permissions are built in the framework, so you cannot use an XEO expression to select instances which you don't have permission to read, or use the API to update an instance you don't have permission to write. There is also a third permission system only available in the web layer, and it does not relate to XEO models directly.
That finishes this part of the video about XEO models. In the next part, we will see XEO's web-based viewer layer, what can you do with it, and how it relates with XEO models.